I'm planning on moving soon, in the next month or two, and I've been kind of downsizing. I've been getting rid of some books and sorting through all this stuff. And one thing that I did this week was consolidate my uh, comic books, the ones that are just, regular uh, American sized comic books. Um, I've consolidated those down into four long boxes. One of those long boxes holds several hundred comics, I believe. And then you can also get what's called a short box, which is basically same idea but half as long. I have a number of those as well. Um, so yeah, I think my entire collection now, as far as the unbound comic books as opposed to trade paperbacks and stuff, I think my collection of comic books uh, is now down to four, basically the equivalent of five long boxes. Which for someone who's been uh, collecting and purging their collection in a kind of continuous cycle for decades, that's not too bad. You know, I know people who are collectors who just have dozens and dozens of long boxes, and I can't imagine trying to manage that. So anyway, what I'm going to do on this video is basically go through the first of the long boxes, and just as a record to show what I kept, just in case anyone cares and thinks it's interesting. Um, and I'm sure I'll comment on a few of the weirder books that I decided to keep. I'm sure a lot of them won't be surprising at all. This first box, so basically the way I organize my comics, as you can see behind me, there's a bunch of shelves of trade paperbacks. So they are arranged alphabetically by artist or author, depending on. Uh, so many comics, of course, have multiple, credits. So I basically pick who I'm going to organize by alphabetically, if in the case of a collaboration, um, and then arrange accordingly. So, but with comic books, I have them alphabetical by title. So, and I also cheat a little bit because one of the ways that I consolidated it down to the five long boxes was I took a bunch of comics that I basically bought because they're by a certain creator, and I put them into these kind of, you can see them right behind my head here, these IKEA magazine boxes. A lot of those are full of comic books as well. Chris Samney is a good one for that. I have a bunch of his individual comics up there on the shelf with some of his trade paperbacks. And so he's no longer in the long boxes, which makes room for other stuff. So, we'll start with one of the truly weirdest comics ever made by DC Comics. It's Action Comics number 593. Apparently, it's October 1987. Longtime old comics fans know exactly what I'm going to show you. It's a story where, and I'm sure Byrne was being very metaphorical about all this, but it's a story where a weird, creepy alien brainwashes both Superman and Mr. Miracle's wife, Big Barda, forces them to have sex with each other, which they can do. They're super people. They can take it. And he films it and creates a porn video, which he then distributes. And that's why, you've got Mr. Miracle on the cover going, Superman and my wife? That's the plot of this comic. And it was a two-issue thing. I think there was a second part in a different comic, maybe, where they reverse everything, but so strange, so bizarre. And I can only assume it's John Byrne jumping on the grim and gritty bandwagon. It's Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns had just happened not long before, and I don't know. It was very weird. The next comic is not nearly as weird. This is an old Delacorte comic, Air War Stories. There will be a lot of comics like this in my collection where I just got them out of a bag of, uh, you know, uh, discards from Strange Adventures and decided to keep it just because I like the look of the art inside, or yeah. I'll go through a lot of comics like this where, maybe I'll keep it for a while, and then when it's time for another purge, I'll be like, okay, I don't really care if I keep this. This actually isn't too bad, though. The art's decent. Not quite sure who it would be. Initials SJG. Don't know. Anyway, Air War Stories. And next up, we have a couple issues of the new 52 version of All Star Western, which was the Justin Gray, Jimmy Palmiotti, Jonah Hex title. They've got a nice looking new collection of this entire series coming out, I believe. I just grabbed a couple of those, I think, in one of those random bags. Next up, we got a bunch of Spider-Man, because Amazing Spider-Man is next. Let's see here. Actually, next up is Amazing Fantasy 1000, which was one of Marvel's anniversary kind of special editions that they've done in the last couple of years, with a bunch of kind of all-star contributors. This cover is by local legend Steve McNiven, which is nice. And then we have the Spider-Man, for lack of a better word, social justice comics of the 1980s and 90s. There's 5 of them. Maybe there's more of them. They're not too hard to find in your dollar bin near you. Even though they have, artwork by... Oh, I guess that's not in trend. The cover here by Todd McFarlane. So there's basically different topics for each of these. Staying off of drugs and practicing safety on your bike. Yeah. Here's one that features the Expos. Sweet. Anyway, those are just weird, so I kept them. And a couple of actual legit Spider-Man comics. They're actually fairly recent. The Amazing Spider-Man number 580, which is by Roger Stern and Lee Weeks. Excellent creative team there. And this last one is... I definitely didn't, nothing against the creative team. I didn't buy it for whatever Nick Spencer is on about in here. I bought it for the Michael Cho cover. That's Amazing Spider-Man, a legacy number 862, current numbering scheme 61. Actually, it's probably not the current numbering scheme anymore. Next up, Mark Miller and a bunch of different artists did this series called Ambassadors, The Ambassadors. The premise, as it helpfully explains here on the cover, 8 billion people, 6 can have superpowers. Who do you choose? And I, of course, I'm kind of... I can take it or leave it with Mark Miller sometimes, but I'll always go for Frank Quitely. And actually, Carl Kerschel, there's great art all the way through here. So, Nice image series there. Next up, we have definitely a couple of series that I kept for nostalgia. One is Arion, Lord of Atlantis, which came out in the 80s and was basically about an ancestor of Aquaman. Um, and it had a lot of, I guess it was also kind of for those who enjoyed the kind of magical fantasy end of the DC universe. There was another really great Aquaman related series back then called The Atlantis Chronicles. I want to say it was drawn by Esteban Maroto and written by Peter David, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, that was a good book. I don't know if I have a copy of that right now. Next up, bunch of just weird stuff. We got the first issue of Army at War, a different approach to war comics, it says. I'm not sure how it's different. This is from 1978. Yeah, I mean, it's maybe a bit more realistic. I don't know. DC was already publishing a lot of war comics by then, and they were also pretty gritty. So I'm not really sure what the deal is there. Then I have a bunch of issues of Atari Force. Actually, I think I've got pretty much the entire series upstairs as well, waiting to be bound. I'm going to bind the series in a little kind of deluxe volume for myself, but I've got some extra copies. It's always nice having some Jose Luis Garcia Lopez issues around. He is a real artistic hero to me and lots of people. Just so brilliant. Here's a few. I didn't do these by title. I actually just put them all under A for Atlas Comics. Now, for those of you who don't know Atlas Comics, they are a publisher that only existed for a couple of years, if that, in the mid-'70s. But whenever I see Atlas Comics just cheap kicking around, I'll usually pick them up. They do have some interesting creative talent in them sometimes, doing some early work like Howard Chaykin, most famously, I think. Next up, another one of those Marvel anniversary issues. It's Avengers number 750. Yeah, so that's cool. Let me see here. Now we're into Batman stuff. Into the bees. Okay, I'm gonna speed through Batman a little more, I think, so that this video doesn't go on forever. Batman versus the Mud Pack, Secret Origins. And I kept this, I'm pretty sure, because the art is by Keith Giffen. This is the tie-in adaptation for the Batman animated series, the Mask of the Phantasm, with art by the late Mike Parobeck. This series, while it was being published, Paul Dini and Ty Templeton and company did this new series called Batman: The Adventures Continue, which was basically set in the same world as that classic animated series from the 90s. And then finally we have Batman and Dylan Dog. They cross over Batman with everyone they can. And this is just a really lovely Eurocomic style mashup of the popular kind of how to explain Dylan Dog. It's kind of like a cross between Constantine and Lupin. And he's very French, just always tired, always over it, but always ahead of everyone. Anyway, that was a fun series. Uh, Here's a weird little one: Booster Gold and the Flintstones. They did all these DC Hanna-Barbera mashups. I know I've got a couple more in there. Um, Mark Russell wrote them. He did some cool Hanna-Barbera comics, especially a Flintstones series. A few different Beasts of Burden miniseries. I believe there's a new kind of omnibus coming out of those, if it isn't out already. And this Kid Blastoff one-shot from Atomic Comics called Biff Bam Pow. Next up, Bermuda by not exactly a local boy, but Moncton boy, Nick Bradshaw. Beautifully illustrated. And a couple issues of Beware, the Monsters Are Coming. Any Marvel monster books, I'll pick those up for sure. Next up, another DC title. It's Birds of Prey by the great Kelly Thompson. And I really particularly enjoyed the artwork of Leonardo Romero, who did the first, I think, basically the first arc, the first 4 issues. And he does most of the covers, if not all the covers. Really solid book. You can't go wrong with Kelly Thompson writing superhero action, female teams. It's just great, great, great stuff. Next up is another mini-series. And actually, this is an artist I should probably put up there on the shelf with his other stuff. It's Black Bolt series by Saladin Ahmed and Christian Ward, who is a favorite artist of mine. Pretty cool series. As Black Bolt kind of goes through some stuff. And we have a few issues of The Black Hood, which, geez, how do we even explain the Black Hood? Kind of an avenging hero guy, from kind of in the vein of like Death Wish, The Punisher kind of stuff. The only real reason to have these comics, I would say, is oh, actually, you know what? The interior art on the first issue is by Gray Morrow, so that's cool. But the cover is by Alex Toth. That's the real attraction. More Evan Dorkin stuff. We got Blackwood. A couple series of that. And Veronica and Andy Fish on the art. Love that. And we dip back into Batman for a second with The Brave and the Bold, which is the Batman team-up title. Here's the one with the Unknown Soldier and one with Blackhawk. Sure. Why not? This is... they've been doing Kickstarters to do revivals of the Gold Key comics imprint, which was kind of known when I was a kid for publishing horror comics and a few other kind of licensed comics and stuff, one of which was presented by Boris Karloff, the classic monster movie actor. And so they published this kind of updated version with some more contemporary artists, and they've done some Kickstarters since. Now we have two series that are not related. Well, actually, they kind of are. The first is a one-shot of the Marvel Comics character Bug, who is from a book called The Micronauts. Now, The Micronauts was a licensing series. It was a toy line that, much like Transformers and Shogun Warriors, Marvel got the rights to create comics about it, and everyone would make some money and sell some toys, basically, was the idea. The Micronauts is particularly beloved because the writer, Bill Mantlo, and the artist, Michael Golden, and subsequent artists basically really dialed up the quality level on a licensed book. You don't normally expect it to be very engaging, much less one of the best comics of the decade, which The Micronauts was. And it's very well remembered. It's been collected into some big hardcovers I've got up there. It played a big influence on my life, really. But anyway, there was a long time where, because they no longer had the license, Marvel was like, well, we can't reprint those comics that everyone loves, but we still have the rights to some of the characters that we created ourselves, including this guy. The character Bug is basically just this little trickster guy, but also a warrior from his planet of insect men. And he's also somewhat based on this guy, aka Forager, from Jack Kirby's series The New Gods. And the Micronauts borrows a lot from stuff like The New Gods, Star Wars, Adam Strange. There's a lot of stuff like names and themes, and just they grabbed stuff from everywhere and paid tribute to it. So these books are kind of related. They're both kind of new spins on Kirby creations. Yeah. Good old Bug. This is a series called By Night. It's kind of a weird mystery fantasy series about these young people who find a portal to a different dimension, and there's kind of some wrestling for control of the portal, and yeah, it's a very, I guess, YA fantasy is the best descriptor I can think of for it. It's not my favorite book of Allison's, but it's fine. It's certainly worth checking out if you happen to run across it. Next up, we have a series, you probably won't see much of this around, Caliber Presents. So Caliber was a publisher in the 80s, and maybe into the 90s, that is probably most famous for publishing The Crow, James O'Barr's classic. It also had an ongoing series that I think was fairly well regarded called The Realm, and some other Baker Street, Dead World, a few other titles that were kind of popular at the time. And much like Dark Horse, they basically had a sampler anthology title where you could read a few pages of some other title, or maybe it was the only place to read these few pages was in this sampler. So if you liked it, you would go read the other series. So that's basically what this was. It looks like I've got like half a dozen issues plus a holiday special called A Caliber Christmas with the Crow looking sad by a Christmas tree. Anyway, and The Realm in there as well. Someone I knew from Appa Centauri uh, took over as the artist on The Realm for a little while, which is probably why I bought these. Although actually there was a, oh yes, look at that. John Dennis was the artist on this story right here, a Realm Christmas story. So that's cool. But yeah, I remember I bought these because of an ongoing series called Fugitive about uh, a serial killer that had the ability to run through television shows. And so he would show up on, the Andy Griffith show and suddenly, be there among all the Mayberry citizens and start hacking them up. And he's being pursued by this, kind of, I guess you'd say like a time cop, basically, but for whatever that technology is, chasing him all the way through different shows. It was called Fugitive, uh, obviously riffing on The Fugitive. And the killer's name was Raish, which was a reference to Bill Raish, the actor who played the one-armed man in The Fugitive. Important stuff stored up here, my kids. Next up, oh, here's some Chris Samney comics that I didn't put up on the shelf, so I'm gonna keep those out of here. It's a short run that he and Mark Waid did of Captain America. Um, um, it kind of is an echo of a previous Kirby series where, um, instead of coming out of the ice in the present day, he basically comes out of suspended animation again a little ways into the future, and America is no longer what it was. Much like when he comes out of the ice, I suppose. But now it's in the future, and even the reader doesn't understand what's going on. So, cool book. We're picking it up with Captain Marvel comics. There's an old one here, the old kind of 60s version. A brief return of the Starlin version before the Death of Captain Marvel graphic novel that came a little bit after that. And then we have some more issues of Marvel Spotlight. That same series of Marvel Spotlight later on had these Captain Universe was a character spun out of the Micronauts, another one of those characters that Marvel could keep because they had created him. And as you can see by the art, that is Steve Ditko art. I'd say it's one of the last significant series that he did for Marvel before kind of going into semi-retirement and just kind of publishing and distributing his own libertarian stuff. Anyway, the premise of Captain Universe was that he wasn't a particular person. It was kind of a Dial H for Heroes situation where you could be imbued with the power of, I think they call it the Unipower, and it was a variant of the Power Cosmic, and it would give you, basically Captain Marvelish powers for a bit, and then when you solved whatever your problem was and righted whatever wrong, it would leave and go on to the next person who needed it. I remember there was a subplot in Spider-Man at one point, I think in the 90s, where he got the Unipower for some reason. So he was like a cosmically powered Spider-Man. Here's a weird little comic that I bought the first issue of but didn't really keep up with. Cave Carson Has a Cybernetic Eye. One of the books that was created when Gerard Way was running DC's Young Animal line. I don't know if that, I don't think that's still going on, right? Um, Fun book, as I can, what I recall of it. Oh, Marvel Monster comic again. Chamber of Chills this time. Uh, oh, an issue of City Surgeon. First issue, no doubt. In fact, it's August 1963. City Surgeon. Sounds fascinating. And then we have another first issue of a book called Clobberin' Time. Looks like it's a team up of the Thing and the Hulk. Oh, story and art by Steve Scrose. Cool. Cool. Scrose, the artist on We Stand on Guard. A very fun book about America invading Canada in a dystopian future. And next up, miniseries. There have been a few of these Universal Monsters miniseries. This is the one for the creature from the Black Lagoon. The creature, of course, one of my favorite monster movie characters, one of my favorite movie characters. And that is followed by one of the EC revival titles, Cruel Universe. More Marvel Monsters, Crypt of Shadows. And then a 4-issue miniseries, Kelly Thompson again. Although I would have bought this anyway, probably, thanks to the covers by Tula Lotay. Anyway, a story called The Call. And then pretty much the opposite of The Call, Cynical Man sells out by Matt Feazell, the beloved stick figure character and his adventures. And then we got a few old issues of Daredevil. Daredevil number 32, wow. Who drew this? Gene Colan, nice. Definitely a keeper. And then we got issues 141 and 145. Gil Kane. Gil Kane pencils one of these. And George Tuska on the other one. Jim Shooter was writing this. Oh, okay, this is the late 70s. I guess we're not into, definitely not into Frank Miller territory there yet. Next up, a series called Dawn Runner, which is kind of a, I'm not even sure how to describe it, kind of a fantasy cyberpunk series by Ram V and Evan Cagle, and some other, Dave Stewart and Idikar. Sorry if I butchered your name there. Anyway, cool series. Wouldn't mind seeing more of that. I don't know if more is in the works or not. Picking up, getting into the D's. I've got a bunch of issues of Marvel's Dazzler here, which was a kind of X-Men related book because the Dazzler was a mutant. Of course, she was created much like the Human Fly. It was one of those books back then that they were trying to parlay into a real life person in a costume that they could maybe make a TV show out of, put in a movie, just kind of, they were trying to create new IP that was also something they could, use. I don't know, maybe they had park attractions in mind? Not really sure. Next up, DC Comics Presents, which is another team-up book. It's a Superman team-up book. I've got more issues of this than I realized. And they're not terribly old. I'd say they go back to the 80s here. There's one with Sergeant Rock, one with Robin, one with the Unknown Soldier. Super weird to have Superman teaming up with the Unknown Soldier. Superman and Clark Kent. And Superman and OMAC. Obviously, I'm going to grab anything related to OMAC, one of the truly weirdest creations of Jack Kirby, and that is saying something. Okay. I'm just going to... Okay. Continuing on with the Ds, we got a few issues of The Defenders, which was a team book full of anti-heroes, basically, was the idea. And it was... I think part of the reason why it was beloved by those who beloved it was the writing. I see here we've got Jerry Conway, Keith Giffen, and Klaus Janson on this issue. I know that Steve Gerber wrote the book for a while too, but I'm not sure when that started. I see David Anthony Kraft was a writer for a while, science fiction writer who adapted a lot of movies and stuff. Now Gerber writes the first annual here from 1976. He would have been writing Howard the Duck around then as well. Next up, we have the first 21 issues. 20, of course, 20 issues of Kieran Gillen and... what's the first name of that artist? Anyway, the book is called Die. And it is the story of a role-playing game gone horribly wrong. The players all wind up in an actual very difficult fantasy environment. Each of them has special skill. So they basically are D&D characters in a real D&D world. They escape, and then they have to go back in years later. So it's kind of there's elements of Stephen King's It thematically, but mostly it's just a really kick-ass series about D&D and role-playing games and how we play them and all that sort of thing. There's actually a new... they took a break for a while, and they're resuming with new issues of this pretty soon, if they haven't already. Great book. Kieran Gillen is one of my favorite writers, currently. Okay, and we're wrapping up with the D's, looks like. Here's a one-shot, I believe it's a one-shot, called Ditko Kirby Wood by Sergio Poncione. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Sergio. This is a cool kind of one-shot, just meditating on the influences of those three very important comics artists, Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby, and Wally Wood. Big influences on me as well. Interesting book. And then we have... Oh, no. Did I miss... I guess I've just got some stuff out of order here a little bit. Oh, no. Okay. So here's a run of Doctor Strange that I bought because I love the art by Greg Smallwood. Actually, that's just... This is some kind of crossover, bringing in the Defenders again. So there were a few different issues of this, and I guess I didn't keep them together in the bin, so I'll find them spread out. And then after that, we have a mini-series by Trad Moore and Heather Moore called Doctor Strange Fall Sunrise. Incredible art. That certainly recalls the glory days of Doctor Strange. Um, and actually, I have this also in a treasury-sized edition as well, to really enjoy the art at a larger size. Next up, we've got a few issues of the Young Animal version of Doom Patrol. The first three issues looks like. I've always been a big, well, not big Doom Patrol fan, but a fan, you know. Um, and that version is, I liked it well enough. I think I did wind up reading more of it, just like through the library or something. Um, yeah, it was fine, but I still prefer the kind of Silver Age, maybe late Silver Age version. Um, Here's one that I kept just because it's super weird. Delacorte presents Dracula if he was superhero or possibly villain, not really sure. The origin of the new Dracula. Ooh. It's number 2 though. It says Dracula number 2. Oh, just because it's the origin, I suppose, doesn't mean it's the first issue. So, fair enough, guys. Fair enough. This is, yeah. I don't know who drew this. I'm guessing it seems like the artists on the cover and interiors might be different people. I don't know. I'm not going to spend any more time wondering about that. Okay, this is just a comic I picked up for free called The Dying and the Dead. Written by Jonathan Hickman. Yeah, I think I just picked it up partially because it's Hickman and partially because the art looked really interesting. Yeah, I might pick up some more of this actually. It's probably all over by now. Edge of Spider-Verse. Okay, so we're into the E's. And I've got a bunch of issues of Edge of Spider-Verse here. Fun book that ties in obviously with the Spider-Verse movies somewhat. If only because basically each issue is about different spiders throughout the Spider-Verse. So if you're into that, you're all set. Next up, continuing with the E's, we got Electro Black, White, and Blood, 4-issue series, which I'm guessing I primarily picked up because there's an issue with Greg Smallwood art. Oh, Evan Dorkin again, the Eltingville Club one-shot. I think it's a one-shot. And Elvira's House of Mystery. Oh, that's a Dave Stevens cover. That's probably why I kept that. Continuing with E, we have, I've got one issue of this comic called ENIAC by I don't have no idea if they're still around or not. There was a publisher called Bad Idea a few years ago, and they did a lot of kind of crazy limited promotions and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, it's fine. I think I was mainly attracted to this because the cover looks like it was drawn by Liberatore. I don't think it was. Anyway, another weird one. And now we go into another run of... remember I spoke before about Cruel Universe, one of the new EC comics? Here's another one, Epitaphs from the Abyss. And it looks like I've got about 10 issues of that so far. Just modern day horror comics. And actually this is one of my favorite titles of the last little while. It's Kieran Gillen again. It's his run on The Eternals. Really brilliant book. If you saw the movie and you were kind of scratching your head afterwards going, what happened there? That wasn't... Like, maybe you're familiar with the Kirby version. Kirby version is great, but the movie is much more like this. It's very thoughtful, very kind of, there's a lot of political maneuvering, but it's not boring. Um, it is still Kirby-esque in a lot of ways, but the art is very different, very elegant. Just a great book. I got a few other kind of related one-shots and after series in there as well. Looks like they're a bit mixed up. Whoops. So next up is this miniseries by Ian Boothby, who I know primarily from mini comics way back in the day, and I remember him working on some Bongo comics, Simpsons stuff. He and Giselle Lagacé from New Brunswick, who's done a lot of great work with Archie Comics and her own Pixie Tricks Comics Empire. This is a very fun story about twin sisters who are also experts in dark magic and demonology and stuff. And the one of them, they're also kind of like an odd couple, of course. One of them is very sloppy, and one of them is very organized, and so on and so forth. Very fun book. Would love to see more of that. Okay, so that. Oh no, I'm not through these. I've got a few more. Here's an oldie. A few issues of E-Man. Classic 80s. Trying to compete with Marvel and DC kind of stuff. Joe Staton drew it. That's cool. Written by Nickel Cutie. And as a backup feature, they have got Killjoy by Steve Ditko. Next up, we have a bunch of issues of Faithless. So we're into the Fs now. And I'm going to have to be a little careful about showing these online because Faithless is really kind of softcore porn. Written by Brian Azzarello, illustrated by Maria Levitt, with a bunch of guests on the covers. This is a quite lovely guest cover on one of the issues. But yeah, it's just a lot of sex and philosophical pontificating, the way that softcore often does. Good book, though. Lovely illustration by Maria Levitt. I became a real fan of hers. And now we're into the Fs. Fantastic Four. A couple old issues, 181 and 186 of the old run. I've got a bunch of, like, the first 100 issues in Essentials volumes up there on the shelves. All the Kirby stuff. Here's a couple of Matt Fraction issues. And most of the run of FF, the other Matt Fraction series, about the Foundation, while the Fantastic Four were lost, kind of exploring the galaxy or whatever they were doing. And then I've got a couple issues of Final Crisis from Grant Morrison and Friends. I basically just kept these because they're in 3D. And I like 3D comics. Okay, this is the last stack from this box. Got a couple issues of Flaming Carrot, pretty late in the run. Wouldn't mind collecting. Somebody should really collect a nice, easily available volume of Flaming Carrot. It really is an 80s essential. I have looks like 9 or 10 issues of this run on Flash Gordon by Jeff Parker and Evan Doc Shaner and Jordi Belair on colors. Can't go wrong with Doc Shaner. And Flash Gordon's usually a good time. Uh, got most of the run here, looks like, on Frankenstein, Agent of Shade by Matt Kint, Alberto Ponticelli, and Wayne Foucher. Jeff Lemire took over, looks like, after a while. But anyway, I enjoy Frankenstein as an agent of shade. It's kind of what I think that's kind of what James Gunn is borrowing from in the Creature Commandos a little bit. And Grant Morrison, I think, I don't know if he's the one who did it first in the Seven Soldiers of Victory series that he did. But he was that was certainly one of the places that I saw that. I just noticed a bunch of Defenders comics that I completely forgot to mention before. This one is drawn by Javier Rodriguez. Yeah, really lovely art in that one. There's a few issues of a series. Oh, same artist actually, Defenders Beyond. Pretty cool series. Not sure if they're going to do more. But so yeah, Defenders and Defenders Beyond. And I've got an old issue of classic detective comics with Superman fighting the Ku Klux Klan. Well, you wouldn't see that now, probably. This is from 1989. Written by Mark Waid, Brian Augustin. Cool. And one lone issue from the 80s of Dial H for Hero. Looks like cover by Carmine Infantino and Dick Giordano. Pretty classic. Pretty classic DC team up. Looks like they're fighting the Polka Dot Man or something. No. Oh, his name is Interchange, the Metamorphic Man. Crazy. Anyway, Dial H for Hero. Okay, so back in the Fs, we have one lone issue of Marvel's Frankenstein Monster Comics, so I'm going to buy it. One lone coverless issue of DC's Freedom Fighters, Human Bomb, Uncle Sam, Doll Man, etc. I would be happy to read that entire series, though. I remember it when I was a kid. You may remember Caliber Presents, the sampler title that I was talking about before. They did a one-shot for that Fugitive ongoing story that I liked. I don't think it collects the older ones. I think it just continues and maybe even wraps up the story. I'm not sure. Now that's funny. The writer and creator was named Charles Marshall. Wonder if he's any relation. That's funny. Okay, now we're into the G's. We've got a few issues of DC's Ghosts, classic horror anthology title from the 70s. They had a few of those. Here's another horror anthology title, but it's from Charlton, and it's called Visit Ghost Manor, If You Dare. I don't know why I have this, because I was never a big fan of Charlton's. There's probably just someone's art in here that I like. Yeah, I don't know. And then I've got a bunch of issues of GI Combat. They look mostly like dollar comics, too, from the 70s. So a lot of reprints, a lot of Kubert, I would imagine. Probably pick those up for cheap somewhere at one point. Anyway, that is the end of box number 1. We'll see if I feel like doing that again or even releasing this one. But hope you enjoyed the commentary, and we'll see you next time.